To live fulfilling and productive lives, we must discover how to oversee change, both that which comes to us and that which we initiate. We must know how to plan for and use change for our benefit. If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. Our natural tendency, acting before thinking, reacting to change versus responding to change. Since most people don't prepare for change, however, the average person doesn't respond to change. He reacts to it. In this sense, I'm defining reaction as having a negative attitude toward change, or taking an action against change before really thinking about it or its consequences. This is the most detrimental way to handle change. It usually results in fear, miscalculation, overcompensation, premature activity, irresponsible or unnecessary use of resources, and even disaster. Merely reacting to change essentially gives change the advantage over you, rendering you a victim of your circumstances. You can learn to be stronger than what happens to you when unexpected change occurs. The first way to do this is to understand the difference between reacting to change and responding to change. There's a vast difference between the two, between ways people react to change. We looked at 5 ways people approach change. They, 1, watch change happen. 2, let change happen. 3, ask what happened. 4, defy what happens. And 5, make change happen. Note that the first 4 are all reactions to change. When change happens to you, around you, or within you, you have to be wise in how you deal with it. Again, many people experience immediate confusion, fear, desperation, or anger when they confront change. And as a result, they act in negative ways that reflect these feelings. If we are to benefit from change, we must understand our role in the process and work with it rather than against it. Let's take a closer look at various reactions people can have to unexpected or unwanted change, which we must guard against as unproductive and destructive. Then we'll look at 5 positive responses to change that will enable us to turn any situation into something beneficial. What do you do if you're pulled by tides of change that you really have no control over? When change threatens our comfort and security, we're tempted to retreat into a world of denial. In fact, ignoring change is actually an acknowledgement of it, unavoidable, because you don't ignore something that isn't there. Moreover, pretending that change isn't happening has no effect on change. It usually just makes you a victim of it. You can ignore or deny change. Ignoring or denying change is the worst reaction you can have toward change. In an attempt to protect our fragile sense of comfort, security, or importance, we create a world of our own making rather than accept what is happening in the real world. Sometimes, to deny change means to minimize the value of what's emerging. It also means that you don't give change the place it deserves in the overall scheme of things. In a sense, to deny change means to disrespect reality, to make no room to accommodate it. It means that you insist on continuing business as usual when it's no longer usual. You live in an imaginary world that has no relevance to the world that has come into being because you have determined that the past is better than the future. Change is always the introduction of the future to the present. Change is tomorrow taking over today. And a denial of change is a decision to live in yesterday, no matter the source of change, be it personal, social, political, economic, or spiritual. We can't pretend that the change is not happening. When it occurs, do not deny it. Instead, seek to understand it, accept its reality, and commit to fulfilling the new role it demands from you. Eventually, to deny change is to become irrelevant. You can become angry at change. Becoming angry is also a dangerous reaction to change. Nothing is as immobilizing as an angry spirit. It produces irrational behavior and self-destructive decisions. The familiarity of the past can make the prospect of a new future unsettling, causing a person to attack rather than to embrace the potential of promise. Many people become angry because change comes without their permission, and it's not something they want or feel able to deal with. Yet being angry at inevitable change is like being angry at winter for coming. If you live in a climate with winters characterized by snow, sleet, and ice, then these things are sure to come every year. If you are angry at winter, you just lose time and energy, for your anger achieves nothing. Among other negative outcomes, being angry at change can lead you to develop internal stress. This can cause you to become physically sick, become bitter. This will eat at you emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Turn on the very people you love. You may begin to verbally attack your family, members and friends, accuse people who are not responsible for it. You may blame others and may even become antagonistic against society in general. In this way, instead of becoming a part of the solution, you become another problem. The largest island in the Bahamas is Andros, and it's famous for its abundance of crabs. Bahamians love to eat crabs. They're considered a wonderful delicacy. The Bahamas have both sea crabs and land crabs. And most of the people who live on Andros are well known for harvesting land crabs, which they sell locally. People normally go crabbing at night because the crabs hide in their holes during the day, but come out at night in order to feed. My first experience with crabbing was when I was young, and my friends and I went crabbing on Andros, which was a fun group thing to do. We were going through the rocks and the bushes at night, and people were catching crabs. At one point, one of my close friends and I came into an area where we saw a number of crabs. To catch crabs in the bush, you use a flashlight. When you shine the light on the crabs, they freeze because they're shocked by the sudden bright light. For a few minutes, they won't move, as if they are paralyzed. After we shined the light on the crabs, and they froze. They did something at this never seen before. They closed their eyes. I asked my friend, why do they shut their eyes when you shine the light on them? He said, oh, because the crabs believe that if they can't see you, you can't see them. And so we catch them. These crabs remind me of people who attempt to ignore change. Change comes upon them, sometimes in a startling or blinding way. Yet instead of reorienting themselves to its glare, they imagine that if they close their eyes to it, then the change can't see them and therefore won't affect them. But the sad result is that change will then catch them and take them away with it, making them mere statistics of change. Denial is the worst reaction you can ever have to change, because you do nothing. Even though you perceive a change as negative, and it may indeed have cost you something valuable. Becoming angry will only hurt you further. It will not make anything better. Develop self-destructive habits. You don't want to deal with the change, so you begin to take up unhealthy practices, such as drinking to excess or taking drugs. What can we do about it? We can be honest with ourselves in life. We can understand the value of both our past and present roles. Each of us is important to the Creator's great program of purpose in this world, and His purposes continue in our lives, even though circumstances and people change. You can actually say to yourself about such change, this will not happen. You can resolve in your heart that you will die holding on to your previous status or situation, whether or not it truly exists any longer. Some people who have gone through the heartbreak of divorce still try to win back their former spouses when the ex-spouses have already remarried and gone on to new lives without looking back. Other people have lost their jobs when the industries they've been working in have become obsolete, yet they still hold on to the idea that they may someday get their old jobs back. The tragic thing is that they end up sacrificing the rest of their lives to their lost pasts. They lose out on opportunities to enjoy the relationships they still have, to meet new friends, to expand their knowledge, and to explore the uncharted territories of their true potential, all for the sake of trying to protect the way life used to be. You can defy or resist change. When I refer to defying or resisting change as a negative reaction, I'm not talking about responding to problems that can be addressed, such as cleaning up pollution and bringing justice to those who are being taken advantage of. I'm referring specifically to change that you cannot, for all practical purposes, do anything about. For example, maybe your company goes completely out of business and you lose your job. Or perhaps your spouse divorces you and marries someone else. You can't resist this kind of change in the way you might resist the spread of crime in your neighborhood. When this type of uncontrollable, irreversible change happens to you, you have a choice about how to react. Some people get into fight mode. This goes beyond their being angry and turning on themselves and others. It means that they decide they will defy the reality of circumstances, situations, and events that are impacting the present states. You can try to resist certain inevitable forces of change, but change will always win. You can become a victim of change. Any of the above approaches to change can result in someone allowing himself or herself to become a victim of change. Again, being a victim of change means that your reaction to it leaves you as a mere statistic. If you don't interact with change, you become a byproduct of its effects. If you are 35 or younger, life without computers may be hard to imagine. Yet sometime in the future, an innovation will come along that your generation isn't fully prepared for. It happens to every generation, affecting even those who believe they will always be on the cutting edge of technology and culture. And computers are still a stumbling block for some older baby boomers. Suppose you had worked in a factory for 25 years, starting in 1965. When you began working there, they had no computers. you counted products in the warehouse by hand, and you wrote them down on a piece of paper. Then you started using a calculator, but you still had to put the numbers in a ledger. In the meantime, you gained a degree of seniority in the company. Yet now, when you're 25 years into the job, the head office says, we are going to computerize the warehouse and everybody must learn to use a computer. Here you are, 48 years old. You've never used a computer before. You don't even understand them, but you want to keep your job. You love this company and you appreciate the way they've been good to you and your family over the years. What do you do? Could react in any of the ways we've just discussed. You could try to ignore it, thinking, I'm not interested in learning the computer. I'm too old to learn. I don't want to go back to school to prepare for another field. I'll just go along doing my job, as I always have. Of course, the company would bring you back to reality by telling you that you either had to learn the computer or stop receiving a paycheck. You could become angry about the situation and stomp around the warehouse, yelling at the management. Then lash out at your spouse when you go home. But that wouldn't enable you to keep your job either. You could resist it, say, no, I refuse to learn the computer. I don't care what they say. Of course, again, you would be let go. You could accept the fact that the company needs to improve, saying, we need to have a better way of keeping track of the numbers. But although I accept the fact that we need the computer upgrade, I'm still not willing to learn it. Same result. Any of these reactions will lead to your being a victim of the change. The company will say, if you are not able to tap into the computer system for inventory control and analysis, then you are redundant. The changing nature of business, industry, trade, and economics around the world, with the accompanying loss of jobs and creation of new ones, is causing people to have to confront new employment situations and realities. Those who were trained in certain fields or jobs that are no longer viable are not skilled or educated in new areas that could open up employment for them. Many are afraid to learn new skills. Yet change is not just about jobs and economics. Through all types of change and in a myriad of ways, millions of people are allowing themselves to fall into a state of victimization when they have the ability to respond rather than react to change. Victims of change, therefore, have been swallowed up by a tsunami of transition. The undercurrent pulls their lives out to sea and then batters them against the rocks of reality. Then their hopes, aspirations, and dreams are left gasping for breath on the shores of humanity. You can accept change. To accept change means that you acknowledge change is coming or is already happening. You assess the impact of that change on your life, your environment, and your circumstances. Even though this acknowledgement is good, it is still only the first step to responding effectively to change. For example, imagine that a train is coming on a track on which you are standing, and you say to yourself, that train is moving toward me, and I accept the fact that it is traveling at a high speed, and I accept the fact that I cannot stop it, and that it will hit me. If you merely accept the train's approach without moving out of its way, you are at the mercy of that locomotive. This is why acceptance alone can still be detrimental. Many people who accept change become victims of that change. So if you stop at the acceptance of change, you will not reap any real benefit. Your acceptance will end up as another form of reaction, rather than as a true response to change. It won't transform your life in any positive way. You can adjust to or accommodate change. Adjusting to or accommodating inevitable change means you are aware that if you don't do something, the change will have a permanent impact on you, and it may be one that is detrimental to you. Therefore, you alter a few things in your life to adapt to it. Yet this approach doesn't result in you really benefiting from the change, because you simply accommodated it. In other words, you did not actively use that change for your advantage. Adjusting to change would not allow you to be transformed by it or to turn the change to your benefit. That's not enough. Even if you accept and adjust to change, you can still end up being its victim, because you are not at the point of truly interacting with it. Here's another analogy. When we do not anticipate change or understand how to respond to it, we become like pawns in a chess game in which change is playing against the way it used to be, and change is always winning. What will you do with change? Since life involves a continual series of transitions, we should endeavor to be always prepared to respond to change. If you react, you are a victim. If you respond, you are a victor. If you react, change leads your life. If you respond, you lead change in your life. The only defense against the negative impact of change is the anticipation of and preparation for its inevitability. The ability to respond rather than react puts you in control and reduces change to servanthood. Responding to change gives you the ability to use change for your benefit. So resolve to be a master of change rather than a victim of change. Thank you for listening to this message, as we hope that it has been a blessing to you. Our goal is to show you new paths and opportunities so that you can discover your purpose. Please visit our channel for more videos.